Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Now, friends, Hanukkah is over. The menorahs have been put away, except for the New Reformed Temple menorah. Latkes and jelly donuts have been eaten, too many of them. The dreidels have been spun for the last time. But the theme of Hanukkah is never over. The story is really about the issue of assimilation and what it means to be a minority in majority culture. The Jews of Palestine in the 2nd century lived in a world dominated by Greek culture, and there were cultural and religious battles raging among the Jews, between the Jews. One group were the Hellenizers. These Jews wanted to become Greeks and jettisoned their commitments to authentic Jewish living. And the Maccabees were a group that opposed Hellenization and affirmed that the Jews must be committed to maintaining their religious way of life. Now, Joseph in the Bible, who is the center of our reading for this Shabbat, confronts a similar dilemma. His biography is meticulously described in the Torah. We know more about Joseph, not only what he does and how he thinks, than any other character in the book of Genesis. He grew up among brothers who knew that he was Jacob's favorite. We know of his arrogance. He bragged that he was the favorite. The story of his being thrown into a pit because of his brothers hated him so much is one of the great tragedies of the Torah. And what happens to him in Egypt is remarkable. He becomes the primary servant of Potiphar. Potiphar's wife lusts after him. She is a sexual predator. Joseph rejects her advances. She lies about what actually happened, and Joseph ends up in prison. And our Torah portion tells of his ability to interpret dreams. And he ends up interpreting Pharaoh's dream concerning an approaching famine. I'm giving you the highlights of his life. And this Hebrew, and that's what the Torah calls him, a Hebrew, who is on the margin of society, becomes the prime minister of Egypt, empowered by Pharaoh to plan for years of famine. But before he can take on this glorious position of, I guess he's a prime minister, he must become in appearance an Egyptian. And there are 6 verses in our Torah portion. Our Torah portion is really long, but there are 6 verses that kind of blow my mind. This is what happens. It says, Pharaoh further said to Joseph, "See, I put you in charge of all the land of Egypt." And removing his signet ring from his hand, Pharaoh put it on Joseph's hand, and he had him dressed in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, yet without you no one shall lift up a hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." And now this is where it gets really interesting. Pharaoh then gave Joseph the name Sophnath Parneach, and he gave him for a wife Asnat, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. Then Joseph emerged in charge of the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Pharaoh knew who he was. Joseph struggled. He became an Egyptian. He wielded great power. He is blessed with 2 children. But he is so transformed that when his brothers come begging for food, they don't recognize him. Just think about this. Being so transformed, so changed, at least physically, you don't even recognize your own brother. And yet, he has a profound emotional reaction to his brothers when they arrive after 20 years. He has not forgotten his father and his past, yet clearly there is no indication that he goes to Shabbat services on Shabbat morning. He fundamentally remains an Egyptian. He is what's called a conflicted Jew, who must navigate loyalty to the Jewish people, his family, and his heritage, and his status as an Egyptian. And there is no indication that he has any intention of giving up his Egyptian identity and his status. But next week we will discover that he saves the Hebrews from extinction, especially honoring his family. Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, the founder of the Reconstructionist movement, spoke about the distinction between positive assimilation, when Judaism adapts to the majority culture by absorbing elements that strengthen and expand Judaism, and negative assimilation, when Judaism surrenders essential ideas and traditions in favor of those belonging to the wider culture. The issue is not if Jews and Judaism will be changed by encounters with other civilizations. The question is how we will be changed. American Jews like Joseph struggle with the challenge of being both Americans and Jews. As Kaplan put it, with living in two civilizations. That was Joseph's dilemma as well. How do we reconcile our identity as Jews and our identity as Americans? How can we best be true to an authentic understanding of each tradition to which we proudly and rightly claim title? Now, let me give you two examples of American Jews and how they address this issue. First one, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, your favorite, and Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. We're not here to address the real issues of Kissinger's Machiavellian approach to foreign policy. That's another discussion. But here are some of the facts about his Jewish connection. In 1985, he publicly supported President Reagan's wreath-laying ceremony at a military cemetery in Bitburg, West Germany, where members of the Waffen-SS are buried. If you remember, Elie Wiesel spoke in front of President Reagan, says, "That's not your place, Mr. President." Kissinger was so irked by concerns about by the concern expressed by American Jews about the fate of Soviet Jewry, calling the former self-serving bastards. During that time, he was recorded as saying, "Any people who has been persecuted for 2,000 years must be doing something wrong." In another transcribed telephone conversation from November 1973, Kissinger declared, "I'm going to be the first Jew accused of anti-Semitism." Kissinger mocked those who defended Jews, especially Israelis. One such target was this extraordinary man, I guess people are forgetting him. He was Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. At the time, he was a presidential advisor, whose pro-Israel stance invoked the comment from Kissinger, "We are conducting foreign policy. This is not a synagogue." And this is the one that really irritates me. It's probably the most superficial, but it really irritates me. One of Kissinger's first actions as Secretary of State was to revoke the standard procedure allowing Jewish State Department employees holidays on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I have many more examples. He did everything in his power not to be a Jew. Compare this to Governor Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro, I think all of us know, is the third Jewish governor of Pennsylvania. He's the 48th governor. Shapiro took office, his oath of office, on a stack of 3 Bibles, and I saw the picture of them. 2 of them I have in my office, and the third Bible was a Bible that was rescued from the deadly attack at the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2018. I quote, "Along the winding road that had led to this moment," referring to his inauguration, "I've been grounded in my family and in my faith. Shapiro said that the Bible symbolized how his Jewish faith has and will continue to guide him on his commitment to being a good governor for Pennsylvanians. Quote, "I have made clear that my faith is what called me to service. It doesn't define my policy positions or tell me where to be on a bill or not. What it does, it motivates me to serve." Shapiro is a practicing conservative Jew who keeps kosher. He said that he would be putting up mezuzahs and keeping a kosher kitchen in the governor's mansion that will be overseen by his wife, Lori. Shapiro featured challahs baked by his wife in his campaign launching video. And he will continue the tradition of Friday night Shabbat dinners with his family, which includes his 4 children, his parents, his in-laws, at the governor's mansion. I'm not claiming that it's easy to balance Judaism and being an American. It isn't. The big controversy in my life was I was in 4th grade and there was a Christmas play at my elementary school. I was an angel, not a good role for me. I was Miro, and the big controversy was, could a Jewish kid be Miro in the Christmas play? And my parents said yes, and I still became a rabbi. It isn't easy to balance Judaism and Americanism. Joseph already taught us that this balancing act would be an eternal struggle for the Jews. But Kissinger's approach saddens me and it angers me. I don't know what was going on in his soul, but he missed an opportunity to be an example of a well-balanced American Jew. And I'm inspired by the public Judaism of this beautiful expression of his Judaism by Governor Shapiro. We Jews can have it both ways, being fully Jewish and fully American. And I think that's the goal to which we all should aspire. Shabbat Shalom.